call to order the April 21st, 2016 meeting of the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District at 5:45, a quorum having arrived. Mr. District Manager, would you please conduct roll call?
Director Mayfield.
Here.
Director Nerlin has previously indicated she would not be here. And Director Marshall.
Present.
And Chair Ronco.
Present.
And Vice Chair Page is en route.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. At this time, we will open the meeting to public expression of non-agendized items. Are there any members of the public wishing to come forward and speak on issues not on the agenda? Hearing no one come forward, and we'll close the public expression part of the agenda and move on to agenda item number 3, closed session. We have gone into closed session at 5:46. Okay, we have returned to open session. Mr. McMichael, would you like to report?
In closed session, an action was taken whereby I was directed to sign an agreement between the City of Ukiah and the district that has to do with the preliminary injunction we have regarding funds to be transferred from the city to the district.
Thank you, Mr. McMichael.
And do you want me to report the vote? And the vote for that was unanimous with Director McNerlin not being here.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is the consent calendar. Are there any members of the board wishing to have an item pulled from the consent calendar for separate consideration?
I move we agree with this consent calendar.
Well, we have to ask the public if they have any requests to have an item pulled from the consent calendar.
I move we agree with it.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Item number 5, approval of the board meeting minutes for December 10th, 2015 special meeting. Any additions, corrections, or clarifications?
I move we approve.
I second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. We also have minutes from the March 17th regular meeting. Any additions, subtractions? I'm assuming we had everybody here on the 17th of
Yes.
March. So, looking for a motion for approval.
Just did it.
Did I second?
No, I move we approve it.
We have a motion and a second.
It's Page Marshall.
David Marshall. Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. That leads us to item number 6, which is a reuse water presentation by city staff. Mr. McMichael, would you like to provide a general overview?
Just a brief statement, Mr. Chair and Directors, in that this has been a discussion item of the board in past, and at some point, I forget where or when, the board said that they would like an update on this issue. And during the course of conversation with the city manager, that he agreed that that would happen for us, and this is the date that it's happening. Sean White is here as a presenter, and he has about, he tells me 11 PowerPoint pages to show you, and we'll take it from there after he makes his presentation.
Mr. White, would you like to begin your presentation?
You bet. All right, so as Frank said, he asked us to come down and give you an update, so that's what we're here to do. Let's start out with just like a real basic overview. I don't know how familiar everybody is with recycled water, what its uses are, kind of what the real current practices are for effluent disposal of the plant, why the city thinks it's important to have a recycled water system just really what the shape of the overall project is now, a little bit of the history and where we're at, funding, and what's happening the rest of this year. So, what is recycled water? You heard it called reclaimed water. Frank calls it reused water. People call it purple pipe. But it's essentially AWT that meets Title 22 of the State Water Code. And it's essentially wastewater that's been treated to a level high enough to be repurposed to some new beneficial use. And we make it right there at the AWT plant down at the treatment plant.
This is an existing tertiary system that is already in place.
Yes, but to build this as a part of the project, that would get expanded. But we make AWT there right now, but not in the volumes that will be probably needed in the future. But we don't know that for sure yet. What can you use recycled water for nowadays? Darn near anything. We were actually just at a big water reuse conference in Santa Rosa last month, and the real big push in California is reuse to potable. We don't have those kind of constraints around here, but in Southern California, the South Bay, other places, fruit used to be sort of an aggressive use, but now it's really going right back to either direct or indirect potable. But for around here, what we're hoping to do is irrigation landscapes, golf courses, schools, cemeteries, parks, ball fields, that sort of thing. Ag, vineyards, orchard, any of those are suitable uses. Frost protection is also okay in some circumstances. And then there's industrial uses like dust control and concrete production. So what do we do with it now? I'm sure most of you know this, but I know we just kind of go through so everyone's on the same page. Secondary effluent, which is not AWT, goes into percolation ponds where it's both stored and then disposed of through infiltration. And then tertiary effluent is discharged into the river. And it's really this part, the discharge to the river, that's getting harder and harder to get permits for. Compliance and compliant is getting stricter and stricter. And that permit is set to be renewed in not a very long period of time. So we're really trying to look at sort of a long-range alternative that gets us out of that compliance loop. And really the real problem with our compliance, you guys already know this, but right now we're not meeting the limits for nitrogen and ammonia on a lot of days. And there are other things, the CEC's constituents of emerging concerns that are starting to come forward. And essentially, if you look in this whole region from Napa to Windsor to Santa Rosa to pretty hard actually Healdsburg, everybody has realized that this is a slippery slope. And they've really got away from discharging to their surface waters and gone to reuse to essentially get out of this sort of compliance cycle. The plant to comply with nitrates and ammonia in its current configuration would take what was, 5 years ago now or 6 years ago, an upgrade at around $22 million. And what's ridiculous is not that long ago, this very same plant was already compliant, and it's out of a major upgrade, and now it's already non-compliant again. And I can guarantee you, when we go to renew this permit, it's not going to get any easier. So people are
When
getting
did they
way.
change the regs to make us non-compliant?
What would it take to change the regs? I don't know.
I said, when did they change the regs to make us non-compliant?
That is something I have to look at. But between when you got your last permit and when it's for renewal, I think it was almost practically right after it was built. And when it was designed, as I understand it, it was designed to what the criteria was at the time.
Could you check that?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
2010 or so.
Yeah, I don't think that's something, and that's just the way it was. It was compliant and designed for what the standards were during design and construction, and they changed the rules after it was finished. You got to understand, that's not unique. They change them every single time, and every single time they get stricter and stricter. In the 60s and 50s, Santa Rosa used to discharge primary and secondary to the Laguna de Santa Rosa and into the Russian River and into Guerneville. Not allowed anymore. And they've already seen this movie, and that's why they built the geysers project that they built. So here is a project description in its current form. The city designed it in 4 phases. The first phase is to the south of the treatment plant. I don't know if this has one here. Oh, that's what.
So that was the yellow?
It's a treatment plant.
Yes, right, but I'm only counting 4 colors there.
Yeah, the colors are not good. Do you know if it says a pointer here? Maybe the one in the middle. That's what I did.
It's like looking down the barrel of a gun.
Is this loaded?
Is this loaded?
Yeah, it's kind of hard. All right, with this cord here, it's a little tricky. South of the treatment plant is essentially 1. From the treatment plant up to about the middle of Babcock Lane is 2. And then that green thing you see that starts, basically goes down East Gobi and then up to the ball fields, that's phase 3. And then the red is phase 4. Currently, to get funding applications, we had to demonstrate people's willingness to even accept this water. And we have people that have agreed to use up to 1,400 acre-feet already.
How many people is that?
Every one of these ones that's in color have already agreed to use recycled water from the system.
They've signed agreements?
Yeah.
At 3.1 million gallons per day, how many gallons does acre-feet represent?
3.1 million, an acre-foot is 325,851, so that's about 9.
9
3 million gallons is about 9 acre-feet.
9 acre-feet.
Yeah.
And
That's
you've got-
1,400, yeah.
And you got 1,400.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. We'll get there in a minute. All right, so the Major Crossing History has been working on this for quite a while, and I remember when I worked across the hall, and this district was over at the theater building or whatever. I used to attend some of the early meetings, I know, when the same district back then, I think Cliff Polland was a board member that was very supportive of it and actually used to encourage me to go. So I used to attend at some point. Anyway, so this is when the city really started. That's when they sent out the RFP for the feasibility study, and really have slowly and surely been working their way through the process. I think some of the ones that are sort of noteworthy and more recent than those, I think have been updated after that, is in 2013 and 2014, the city got about $2 million through Prop 84 Irwin money to accelerate the engineering and build some of the smaller facilities needed south of the treatment plant for phase 1.
Sean, may I ask real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Corolla Engineering,
Yeah.
what is their background in these kind of treatment?
They're pretty much, I would say, they are the superstar of recycled water. They did a lot of the projects in Sonoma County, did some of the ones in Napa County. I would say as far as consulting engineers for recycled water, they're in the top 3, if not number 1. They're very well recognized. So anyways, they got money from Prop 84. It's $2 million. It really sort of accelerated things. But back then it was really Irwin and Prop 84 looked like the biggest pot of money around. But then to everybody's misfortune, it stopped raining. And that lack of rain and the drought and all of the sort of water supply situations that happened really in other parts of the state created a level of panic that made huge pots of public money available. And what's really nice about all this work that happened from having finished CEQA to having other really major changes done, like getting the change petition for a change in place of use for the disposal to include beneficial ag. These are big steps that most people didn't have finished. When I showed up and Prop 1A money became available, what was really on the ground was a largely engineered, CEQA compliant, change petition ready. This is about as close to a quote shovel ready project as you could find in the state. And the state made almost $1 billion of money available for this kind of project. Initially, the city had designed it in small pieces because no one ever thought there'd be any way anybody could ever afford to build big hunks of it in one shooting match. But when $1 billion landed on the ground, we decided to just go for it and see what they said. So we actually submitted a grant for $55 million to see what they said. And they basically came back and said, we'll give you $35,560,000 and come back next year if you want the rest.
Do you think some of that might have been because of how far along you were?
It's entirely because of how far along it was. The only thing we were really missing, and when that amount of money landed on the ground, a lot of people started doing a lot of homework quickly, was the only thing we didn't have were any sort of user agreements, so that's when we sort of ran out and got those. But otherwise, the city really had all of the other major pieces in place. So out of this $35 million that this state is offering, essentially $10 million of that is just cash, it's free money, no interest, it's a gift, not a loan. The other $25 million is 1%. And then the latest thing that once this happened,
Sean, I'm sorry.
yes, please.
So there's the 35 million. You have an overall projection of what it would cost?
55 million, which is what
55.
yes, that's for the whole thing. This 35.6, this is essentially enough to build the entire ag piece. So everything you see from essentially Robinson Creek to the baseball fields up there off the freeway, that's all part of that grant.
And that is not, that portion of it doesn't equal the 1,400 acre feet.
No, 1,400 acre feet is all 4 phases.
So that means then that the red line is not funded or constructed with the money available.
No, but what will be happening is in this 35 million, that'll do the first 3. Essentially, the state ran out of money. They had just shy of, I think, either just shy of $1 billion or just shy of 1.1 billion. And we were in way ahead of time, but they literally already depleted that money. And the state transferred, I think, another 800 million into that. So we got that. Even then, they ran out of money. But they have encouraged us to come back next year, apply through the same exact grant funding, and they have told us they will award us the remainder if we want it. The thing that's kind of
competition was pretty stiff and
yeah, the thing that's good is they have lots of other screening criteria. They try and disperse things through regions evenly. We're a disadvantaged economic community, so we get a bunch of gold stars for that. And other things like essentially helping with frost protection and other natural resources, things that are important to the state, make this a very competitive package. But I think what it is, they just didn't have any large-scale shovel-ready things in this neck of the woods. And when it goes back to the assembly, there's always some desire to have things be proportional, and in particular, in any type of thing like this, 80% of the money tends to flow to Los Angeles or somewhere near Los Angeles. There's always some pressure to have a couple of good projects.
I did notice on the map that everything on the east side of the freeway doesn't look like you'd be digging up any streets, but on the west side, that's where you're going to be going up.
Yeah, on the west side, that basically is blazing right up Low Gap. And the reason is there's a giant concentration of turf there. So while this is sort of not that big of an area, essentially in this neck of the woods, viticulture from cradle to grave in this little region, it uses anywhere from 0.8 to 1.1 acre feet of water per acre to build a crop. Turf can use up to 5. So even though it's small, it uses a lot of water. The other thing that's good about turf, and Frank had asked me these questions previously, A lot of times, farmers, in particular viticulture, don't want to apply water when they don't necessarily need it because it will affect the quality of the fruit. But there's a couple users in here that are either alfalfa or lawn, and especially in Ukiah during the disposal season, you essentially can't use too much. So they're great places where if we need to get rid of water simply for the purpose of getting rid of water, those are good types of use to sort of have in your portfolio because they can always ditch water. And that's really what this is. This is not an irrigation project or a farming project. This is a non-river-based disposal project. Yeah.
I just know from some stuff I read that it's been quite a few years, but I know like El Dorado County's been doing purple water. My sister lives over there for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I know that I was doing some stuff in some turf areas, and they have some issues where if you use too much reclaimed water, they have salinity issues with soil and everything else that sometimes early on they'll take everything they can get, but then there is some turf quality issues that they have to worry about, especially on the greens.
It depends on your water. So,
that was my question.
like there are some places in Southern California where they actually have to blend it. So you can't use straight recycled water. The TDS or salt is too high, and it will kill the lawn either at immediate application or over time.
Right.
But we're lucky; our salts here are super low, so I don't think it's going to be a limiting factor at all.
Do you anticipate your second phase of funding, the 20 million more?
Yeah.
Is that going to be at the 1% rate?
No, it's really kind of nice. So sometimes when you're shooting for the moon, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And when we were somewhat disappointed that we didn't get the whole thing in one piece, they reminded us that the way these grants are set up, the first 35% is free, and then it's the remainder that's at 1%. And that has a $15 million cap. So when we asked for it in a big lump, we would have gone past the 35% cap of $15 million. So proportionally would have been worse off to get it in one lump. So by them encouraging us to piecemeal it, we never ran into the cap. So we'll get the full 35% of free money. So it's actually pretty sweet.
So you're looking at 13 million more in financing.
Yeah, exactly.
And forgive me, but when will this next application go?
It's going to be, I think, about the spring, right?
Yeah, this year for award next year.
Yeah.
This time next time.
Yeah, I gotta
So that's good.
come back on my feet here. So we applied in November,
Yeah.
so it'll be this November. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you'll hear about it
In the spring, yeah. And another part, and one of the reasons not only did they not give it to us, but it's kind of good we didn't get it. These Prop 1A funds are designed to be like used, and you only have, I think, about 18 months from the time you sign the contract to complete your project. So they want shovel-ready projects to be shovel-ready. They want you to be ready to turn dirt. So one of the things that we're doing now is accelerating the engineering for phase 4 as well. So when we apply, it will be ready to go.
Can you talk a little bit about what the storage needs would be for this project?
We'll get there in a minute, yeah, because it's sort of a big question mark. So just money, obviously a big concern to everyone in the room. So here's where we're at in the grand scheme of things. So far, the city has spent about $1.5 million for engineering, CEQA, permitting, all the things to date. It's all been out of the city's money so far. But this is what's good about getting away from traditional things, is there's lots of money that wouldn't normally be available. So the city's got essentially $12 million in grant money so far, so that non-loan money, that's 100% free money for this. And then this other $25 million at 1%. Just a real quick calculation, we've really been trying to see what this is going to do for rates and debt service and all those sorts of things. The 96 AWT loan gets paid off this year, so we'll lose about $425 million in debt service. So as new debt service at 1.1, we're going to pick up about $700K, and that's about 10% of the overall operating budget.
425 in debt service,
Mm-hmm.
that's a shared debt, is that not correct?
Yeah, correct.
So you're not losing 425. Because our budget's gonna be reduced by half of that for
For the facility. All right, so what's happening next? Essentially, the design will be 100% finished for phases 1 through 3 in the summer of this year. Bid construction documents will be released essentially right after that. And we have a target date of essentially October of this year to begin construction. And we should have it all done, really need to have it all done by the fall of 2017. If we receive funding during this period for phase 4, then we'll be doing the same thing the subsequent year. And I think with that, that's sort of the big update.
And Frank asked about the storage.
Storage, yeah. So one of the things that's happening here, which is important, we just amended our agreement with Corollo to do 2 things. We had fairly advanced engineering agreements for phases 1 and 2, but not for 3, because we thought it was going to be quite a while until we ever had enough money to do that. So we accelerated that. But the other thing, and this is really an important thing for all of us, is we included the development of the water balance model. The water balance model is basically going to look at the inflow from the entire collection system, the projected demand that we're going to have from recycled water, the pattern of demand, so the seasonality of it all, how much we can get rid of through keeping the perk ponds, and then how big of a system are we going to need to get rid of everything else, so to get away from a discharge entirely. And some of the questions that are going to be really for everyone to sort of figure out what we think is the right size equation for them is how big of a storage system do we want to build to house the water, because obviously we get most of our inflow in the winter time through I&I. That's when all the water shows up, and we don't have any irrigation demand in the winter time, so we have to store it until the summer when we can get rid of it. So along with that, one of the things that we need to look at when we get this water balance is how much of it do we want to attack from the other side. So disposal is part of the solution, but the amount of water we need to get rid of is a direct result of how much I&I we have as well. So instead of looking at building bigger storage or bigger reclamation, we can also look at reducing the inflow to the plant. And dry weather flow is around 2 million gallons, wet weather flow is around 8 million gallons. So if we do maybe a few select projects to cut that 8 million gallons a day during the winter into something, into infrastructure repairs in the collection system, then we can build a smaller reclamation system and smaller storage to go with it. So really, we won't know the real answer. We can surmise all we want, but we'll have the real answer here. And then once we have that model, we can change the variables to see how it all works out under any scenario that we might want to consider, and then pick what we think is the best answer.
Earlier I asked how many acre feet at 3.1 million, which is the capacity plant. You said 9 acre feet.
It's 3 million, yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Now, if I'm dividing 1,400 acre feet
Yeah,
by 9 acre feet,
yeah,
I come up with 155 days of availability to
Right.
So in a 365-day year, we've got 210 days of storage we're going to have to deal with. And that's at the plant capacity, not what you're talking about as far as 8 million in the winter, etc.
not necessarily, right? So those calculations aren't that linear at all. Because even in the winter, when these are full spring water, they're leaking every day. So it's not a...
What I'm talking about is we could have the capacity to produce 3.1 million gallons of effluent a day, which I'm assuming would equate to the amount of tertiary treated water that we would be needing to get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the sign up for 1,400 acre feet.
Right.
Now, 9 into 1,408.
I get what you're saying.
So, whether we have leaking ponds or not, we still got 210 days of treated water to get rid of. And we're going to build.
Well, we're going to do... You know, you can look, you can raise your eyebrows, but people do this every day. And until we have the real math that comes out of that water balance model, any guess that I would give you would be just that. And any estimate you would make would be just that. And I think this is one of these things where these tools were created because nobody can really figure that out the way we're trying to do it in the room right now. And I think what you're going to see is if we keep all of these perk ponds perking all winter long and build subsequent storage, this first round, and this is probably not the end of the show, is going to get rid of, or be very close to get rid of our whole need to directly discharge to the river. And that's what's killing us now. And then we'll have reclamation and perk ponds. And then over time, we can develop other things that will absorb the rest of the water. Again, the only reason we produce as much water as we produce is because we allow that amount to leak into our system. So the other side of the equation is not just about storing more and more and trying to get rid of more and more, but it's reducing the volume that shows up in the plant in the first place. People aren't going to the bathroom 4 times as much in December. It's the river getting into the collection system. And if we can tighten that up, and even tighten it up by a couple of huge, big hit kind of projects, which I'm sure we have out there, we can get this done.
Sean, I was under the impression that there was some probability that we were going to have to line those percolation ponds.
Well, I think, you know, Frank, and this kind of kicking it around has been happening for a long time. So don't think I don't take any offense to anybody's sort of initial blush, because we've booted this around our shop, and engineers at Coral have as well. And I think initially, in particular, when we didn't know we were going to get a bunch of state money, one of the things we were thinking we might want to do is take one of these ponds out of rotation for percolation and use it for storage. We didn't have to build a new storage facility. And then this storage pond is a huge part of the cost. And I think the current estimate, which is, again, a real back of the envelope, is like, what, 72 million? 72 million gallons of storage that you need to run it in its current configuration. So I think that the Corollo feels at this time is we're way better off building storage and then keeping all of these as perk ponds to essentially take those other 200 days that are concerning you and get rid of them that way, and get rid of the balance through irrigation until we start controlling our I&I.
I take that point, but I thought I remember Regional Water Quality was talking about having to line those ponds.
I don't think they're going to force us to line these ponds. And I mean, this is a real sort of hidden gem in going this way. And that's why Santa Rosa went this way, and that's why Healdsburg went this way, that's why Windsor went this way. The state board and the regional board, they love this, and they hate river disposal. So I said earlier, you know, our permit is getting to the point where we need to start reapplying because it's going to expire in 2017. And Kathy Goodwin, who I've known for 30 years, is a nice lady, but she is a stickler. And not the kind of person that really cuts you any slack. And the second she asked about recycled water and are we going to start doing it anytime soon, we told her we'd apply for the money and got the money. Her whole attitude about working with us to renew the permit was entirely different. So if they see, and they've done this even under our current situation, that you're making an effort to move to sort of the next phase or to try and improve your situation and slowly move away from direct discharges to the river, I'm confident they will give us slack on those for a long time until we get our whole program together.
Would they let us build another percolation pond?
I don't know about that, and I don't know if I push my luck with that. But I think really any of those kind of questions are premature. You know, I wouldn't want to poke her with a sort of provocative question like that. So we really see if we even need to. You know, the water balance model may show that what we have is perfectly fine.
As you know, I've expressed concern with them. a particular seasonal year that, you have extra water and people don't want to use that.
Yeah.
What do you do with it all?
You get rid of it. And I'll tell you, in Sonoma, I had no trouble ever doing that. The Sonoma Valley Treatment Plant, when we took that over when I was at Sonoma County Water Agency, had the exact same kind of situation that this plant has. And we had our first phase of reclamation. It was type R1 and 2. And we had like calculated out the storage to, you know, way too tight. And there were a couple of Octobers where they were literally full to the brim. I mean, like, we were freaking out. But after a couple of years of serving all those guys in Shelbyville with recycled water for fodder production, even though they had no obligation to take it, they were so happy with all of the stuff. And we would just basically call them up and say, can you turn it on? And they would like, no problem. And they would turn it on. So we really found over time, we built relationships with our ag customers in particular. If we needed them to get rid of water, even if they didn't need it, you know, like a lot of these guys now in grapes would love to do post-harvest irrigation, but because of all the drama that goes with it, they don't. They forego it. If we could say have a great time, they'll have a great time. And you know, I know there's some concern about going up to these sort of more urban users up here, but those are really the ones that are perfect for that. The golf course bugs us every day about their water situation. The high school doesn't want to take it. Cemetery would love to have free water to keep their fields looking lush. So it's been my experience that if you get in a pinch, you've got a good relationship with your users. They'll take it even if they don't need it.
And so you're confident that if we're making moves towards resolving this, that regional water quality is going to back off on the
I
requirement?
think they're going to back off a lot.
On ammonia.
Yeah. I mean, here's like just a small example of how cooperative they've been in trying to facilitate this. So in their regional general permit for recycled water, frost protection is not explicitly listed. It's not explicitly forbidden either, but there's a number of conditions in there that were sort of giving Kathy some heartburn. But we told her that without frost protection, because that's a big part of the 0.8 of an inch those guys are going to use, so we need frost protection to be allowed, or it's going to be kind of a no-go for us. She immediately began working with people in Sacramento, and then we met with people from the actual whole state board. Stephen Moore, the engineer that's on there right now, he's like, I heard about your situation. We're going to make sure when we have the hearing that it's included. So just as reluctant as they can be to slacken them up when they think you're not going the direction they want you to go, if you're going the direction they want you to go, they will absolutely endeavor to make it work out. Yeah, it's the change in attitude was noteworthy.
Well, one little quick question. As I say, the red line going through the Brush Street
Yeah.
triangle, there's going to be development out there. Will they be tapping into it, you know?
You know, I don't know about that. I couldn't tell you. The thing that's good about this system in particular is if we find over time that we just need more users, and it's really kind of funny, when I was working for Flood Control, I went to all of these early feasibility workshops that the city held on behalf of the Farm Bureau. And, you know, it was like most places I've seen. And what was interesting here is a lot of the pear guys were concerned, since they have fruit contact, that they wouldn't be able to use it. So it took a little bit of hand holding, and I set some of those guys up with people I know that do this elsewhere, and now they're already bugging us to go under the river at Talmadge and get it out to the pears there. But it's also sized to, we can go further to the south if we need more. So there is, I guess I'll make the pun, low-hanging fruit still left in this if we need more.
we've heard about your project.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
You're very
Yeah, I
welcome.
appreciate you coming in.
Anytime.
Okay. So, I guess that means that we're down to agenda item. Any members of the public wishing to make a comment? I didn't realize that Mr. McCord had snuck in behind us. So, that having been done, we're going to move on then to item number 7, announcements, matters from staff.
A couple of things, the letters that were in your packet is, one is from Water and Power Law Group down in Berkeley, Fishy Springs. Decision is being challenged. That's being looked at by Doug Olsek at Duncan's office. I put in the letter from the city manager on March 24th, so that we're getting this record as well. And each of you, a long time ago, got that letter. And finally, today I got yesterday I got a decision from a small claims court that remember the Palmer issue where you had about 12 years of over leaking water and
Right.
Oh, yes, up there on, incline. Yeah.
Well, we were dealing with it at the attorney level, and then for whatever reason, they decided to go to small claims court, and it turned out well for them that Judge Henderson is giving them the full $10,000 request. So we're going to have to pay down that $10,000.
In theory, refund them the sewer charges that
For past years,
in the past years.
yeah.
He's generous. Mr. Henderson's quite a generous fellow.
There will be some action that we're going to have to take to resolve these issues in the future because we're going to get abated. One of the conditions of the state's decision.
Yeah, I'll be coming back to the board at some point in time with an agenda item regarding an adopted policy and how we're going to do our claims. And then lastly, just for general information, nothing more, I got a document in today from the county planning that has to do with the RCHDC proposed development of 80 units on Brush Street. And that's, I met with Mike Powelson, who's the development director for RCHDC several weeks ago, I forget how long. And I gave him a letter regarding what the expected fees would be for that. So they're proceeding right along in asking for a use permit, and I'm not sure why they need a use permit for that location, but I'll find out. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
If I may ask a real quick question. So based on these figures they were giving us, what's the difference as far as what we've been,
What are we talking about?
what's the Fishy Springs?
Oh,
How, percentage-wise, I mean, is this half of what?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Well, if we don't have any further questions, we're going to set the next regular meeting for May 19th, 2015, 5:30 at the palatial meeting room here on Olive Avenue, and we will adjourn.
So the only thing before maybe we adjourn, so I'm getting close to moving. So what was the issues with, as soon as I move, when do I have to resign from the board? Or what is the?
Would you be willing to give us a letter, date certain resignation?
Okay.
And do you have any sense when that might be?
Well, I actually got kind of went through a hurdle today where we got approval that we can do occupancy just today. I just found that out. So
Great.
I would guess I'm about a month away. And I can't give you a date, so. My house is still not sold that I've got on the hill, but,
You need new digs. So, the new digs, you're gonna live in and work.
yeah.
I'll give you a call.
Okay.
Well, super, then we're adjourned.
I thought that groundwater presentation would be long enough that I'd make something.